Get up. Get up. Get up.
What is up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Mets'd podcast, the official podcast of the New York Mets. Never going to get tired of saying that. We just wrapped up a very short series out in Houston against the Astros, which didn't really go our way. Houston, we have a problem, maybe? Not really, actually. We're going to talk to you about why it's not a problem. One being the Houston Astros are really good, and two, there was some things that were positive to take out of this game. We're always going to find a nice spin zone on this, so that's exactly what we're going to do in this episode, but we will also talk about the ugly, because that's what we do. We go through all the games, as you know, recap everything that happened, as well as preview the next series. We also have Mailbag to talk about, and a little bit of fun Mets history, along with a little bit of a minor league draft because Max Scherzer, of course, made his first rehab start. But before we do get going into the episode, you guys know what you need to do. Make sure you're following us on all our social media at Mets'd everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And if you're watching us on YouTube, no longer on the Mets'd YouTube channel, just on the Mets YouTube channel. So really easy. You guys can't miss it. You know it. Subscribe over there. If you're following... If you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, wherever you get your podcasts, you will be able to find us. Drop us a rating, drop us a review, share it. It really does help grow the podcast. Without further ado, let's bring in my co-host, James Schiano. James, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Back in the regular digs.
Back in the regular digs, fresh off our first official episode with the Mets. Felt great.
Two technically,
because we did drop the bonus episode for you guys yesterday, the Todd Zeile and David Cohn interviews, which were awesome. And if you didn't listen to those, go give them a listen after this one. Let's go ahead and just start talking about this Astro series. It wasn't great.
No, we cautioned you guys on Tuesday that Trevor Williams against the Astros was going to be a difficult proposition. And you kind of sensed right off the bat that that was a game that would be unlikely to win for the Mets.
Yeah, Trevor Williams has been great for us, I think, this year in the role that he's had. He kind of was this stretch man at the beginning of the year, and because of all the injuries, he's now kind of taken over this last starting pitcher role for us. And to be fair, he didn't really pitch poorly. Like, his pitching performance was not the reason we lost this game.
No, I'm not trying to disparage Trevor Williams in any way. Almost any pitcher would have a tough time against the Astros lineup, and especially one like Trevor Williams, who doesn't have as many tools in his tool bag as some other pitchers in baseball. But from the first inning, Astros hit 4 balls pretty solidly. They had 2 more in the second. You kind of just felt like something bad was going to happen. Then the third inning began. José Altuve hit a home run. Yordan Álvarez hit a massive home run. I told everybody, you don't want Yordan Álvarez facing Trevor Williams because bad things are going to happen. I was right.
Yeah, Yordan Álvarez casually having one of the best offensive seasons in all of baseball. His numbers are off the charts, and we saw him absolutely dominate the Mets this series. I think it was interesting, too, something that we've talked about in the past on our podcast, a pitcher like Trevor Williams facing a lineup the second time, especially the Houston Astros, whose top of the lineup is among the best with anybody in Major League Baseball. I understand what Buck had to do there because we needed some length, but you can see that could definitely be a problem.
Yeah, if Trevor Williams would have left this outing after 2 innings, it would have been fine. That kind of shows you the natural limitations that almost any pitcher has when hitters see them multiple times. And you did see the difference between that first inning and that third inning because all of these same guys who hit the ball really well came to the plate in the first and hit it well, but just like a little bit less well. Like fly balls, like good hit fly balls, like 300-ish feet away. And then they just got it over the wall. Even Kyle Tucker, after that Álvarez home run, put a real good ride into one. And Trevor Williams got out of the 4th inning. He got through a not super good bottom of the Astros lineup. It's kind of weird that they have this like incredible 5 and just like falls off a cliff. But when it was all said and done through 4 innings, Trevor Williams faced 17 Astros. 12 balls were put in play. 4 were over 100 miles an hour off the bat. 3 more only over 95 miles an hour off the bat. And only 2 ground balls of those 12 balls put in play. That is not a recipe for success in Minute Maid Park or against this Astros lineup, and that just happened.
And all things being said, though, he did only give up 3 runs. It was only 3 runs at that point.
Yeah.
It was more so annoying that the Mets just couldn't really get to José Urquidy, which we talked about him in the last episode, too. He's a solid pitcher. This is just kind of what José Urquidy does.
Yeah, all of José Urquidy's pitches, if you guys were watching the game, you can kind of see that his fastball, while it doesn't have like really good velocity, it kind of sits at 93, 94 range. It does have that like upward seaming movement at the end. His changeup moves very well. I think he got Lindor in a really nice outside changeup that just faded away from him. The slider's solid. The whole tool bag is solid. Nothing spectacular, but it's all very solid. Like, who's a hitter that's like that?
Man, that's a good question. Someone who just kind of does everything well. Ooh, that's a tough one to think about.
Someone who's a hitter like that, who's better than Urquidy is as a pitcher, I would say is Canna.
Okay, I was thinking Canna a little bit, honestly.
But another comp I kind of have for that is kind of Jurickson Profar, like the new modern Jurickson Profar, where like he barrels it kind of like league average. He hits like kind of more fly balls than league average. He strikes out kind of less than league average. It all is fine. He's not good at anything.
Yeah.
He runs a little bit. He does make a good amount of contact, a good amount of power, but nothing crazy. Everything's okay.
That's what Urquidy does.
Yeah, that's what Urquidy does. Sometimes it's not that good, and sometimes it is. And we had guys on the second inning, the third inning, the fourth inning, and just could not scratch one across.
No, couldn't scratch one across. We really, in this series specifically, felt like we missed the presence of Jeff McNeil in this lineup badly. He just makes this lineup so much deeper. He makes this lineup so much better offensively. And we talk about one of the guys who's been the best in all of baseball with runners in scoring position this year. And he just didn't get those opportunities because he was, healing that sore hamstring, right?
Yeah, and you kind of felt that a lot in the fourth inning when the Mets had bases loaded, one man out, and you had Eduardo Escobar and J.D. Davis coming to the plate, and they both struck out against Urquidy in kind of uncompetitive-ish at-bats against a 93-mile-an-hour fastball with a plus movement profile, but still just not... You left you missing McNeil there.
Yeah, no, definitely could have used McNeil. The game really got broken open, though, when Chasen Shreve came into the game. He just wasn't sharp for what feels like kind of the consecutive outings for him. And he even talked about it after the game that they're looking at his stuff, and sometimes it's nice, and it's exactly where they want it to be, and sometimes it's not. And he's like, and I just don't really know why. I'm not really sure why my splitter doesn't break like it does sometimes. He's like, the numbers are great when they're good, which that kind of makes sense, but the consistency hasn't been there, and he acknowledged that.
Yeah, but the other side of that coin, Adonis Medina came in after Shreve and did a really, really, really nice job saving this bullpen on a day when it had to work very hard after a 4-game series with the Marlins, no off day. That was very nice. It kind of gave the Mets a little bit of breathing room. Not breathing room, that's not the word, but just kind of took the load off their backs for a little bit. It was very nice for Adonis Medina to do that.
José Siri, though, did hit an absolute nuke of a home run, and he pimped it, too. Now, I would love to get your take on this. What did you think about José Siri's pimp job? Did you like it? Did you hate it?
I mean, I don't really care that much about a pimp job. You're beating a team by a lot, and you're José Siri. You might as well do it. I did see that.
He also hit the ball onto the tracks.
No, I will very rarely chastise a player for a pimp job, only if it's like a situation where it's very clear that there is a feud and you're going to get someone plunked on your own team.
Yeah.
Which Dusty Baker alluded to.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen because that's not really the way baseball is anymore. And also, the Mets and Astros, there's no bad blood.
Escobar did take a little exception, though. I don't know if you saw that.
I'm sure a lot of guys took exception. I'm sure Buck took exception. Lindor probably even took exception. But it was whatever. It's José Siri. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, he really smoked that ball.
Yeah, he crushed it.
Yeah. But the other question is, and I had moved off of the television to the radio by this point in the game, Pete and Escobar each had home runs before this happened. Did either of them gaze into the night sky?
No, they put their head down, they ran.
Okay.
There was no watching it. I mean, Pete crushed it. Crawford boxes. Imagine if Pete played in Houston for 170
home
games.
runs.
Yeah, he'd break the record. Such an absolute bandbox there. But I don't think that had anything to do with José Siri. And, I mean, Dusty Baker having his comments, too, I think it kind of just showed that they weren't pleased with what he did as they were up. But
also, it doesn't seem like he was that upset.
It really wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah,
I'm sure it got people outside of baseball more angry than people inside of baseball.
Yeah, and this, I mean, you guys know it. Once a series, this was the poop fest.
This was the game.
Due for one.
That was just kind of lost from the beginning. You wanted to maybe sneak one out here. You thought there was maybe a chance because José Urquidy, but at the end of the day, the Astros hitters were just simply better than the Mets, and they end up getting the win in Game 1. Now, Game 2, we had Carlos Carrasco going into this one. He's been pitching so well for us this year. We were feeling a little bit better going up against Luis Garcia, who was their young, I don't want to say ace last year, but young budding star last season, who hasn't been as sharp.
Not as sharp. He's still a good pitcher with a very solid floor, but the real issue here was just Carrasco. Another time during a start away from Citi Field, it just looked like he was a little bit uncomfortable, not as sharp, not as effective. You blinked, the Astros scored 4 runs before they recorded an out.
Yeah, I was talking to some friends watching the game, actually, and all of a sudden, I'm just like, what? No, what's going on? Like, this isn't how it's supposed to be. Carrasco's been so money for us, so it was a little shocking to see him go back to a little bit of the 2021 ways with having a little bit of a nightmare first inning.
And with the nightmare first inning, even after the barrage that took place of Jose Altuve walk, Michael Brantley double, Alex Bregman bomb, and Yordan Álvarez just absolute moonshot.
So good.
Every other ball in play felt like a fly ball to the warning track. Like, it felt like you didn't really have a second to breathe. Like, I was almost happy to get out of that first inning with only 4 runs.
Kyle Tucker hit another long fly ball after those guys went yard, and you kind of heard, Minute Maid kind of get up on their feet like, oh, again, a third? But luckily it stayed in. Yeah, he just wasn't sharp in the first inning, and maybe the back issue that we saw a little bit later could have been playing into this. Maybe he just wasn't feeling 100%.
It's possible. He did kind of round out a little bit better after this first inning. The first 5 balls in play by the Astros were hit hard, as in they were hit over 95 miles an hour. When you came around a few innings later, Yordan Álvarez hit one of the hardest home runs I've ever seen, 114 miles an hour off the bat.
That ball got out in under 3 seconds. Like, he hit it, I went, oh my God, that's crushed.
Really happy I shouted them out because I feel like there are a lot of more casual baseball fans, especially fans who like more are going to focus on the Mets, who don't play fantasy baseball, not staying up and watching the West Coast games. They're not as aware that a guy like Yordan Álvarez is like a true superstar being developed out there in Houston.
I mean, we were talking to our producer, John, before recording this episode, and he was telling us how his numbers compared to Judge, just strictly offensively, are pretty comparable. If you did a blind, test, there's a chance you're picking Yordan Álvarez just as many times as you're picking Judge's numbers. The numbers are unbelievable on the offensive side. He just obviously is a DH, so he doesn't get that value.
Yeah, and lefty, righty, it's a little different, but the guy's a freak. I just do want to talk about Carrasco for a few minutes here because this did feel like 2021 Carrasco again, which is a little scary. His velocity was down across the board, which is something that is a signal for injury, and we did see him leave the game with back tightness later. It was kind of also, I don't want to say it was funny because he left with injury, but there was like a moment where he just hesitated, and then in 1 second, Buck, Hefner, Trainer all out at the same time. It was like a brigade.
It's like they knew. They were like, that's not a normal action for Carlos Carrasco.
And speaking of abnormal, his four-seam fastball, that has been a pitch that has been very good this year, very effective and very reliable for him, more so than last year. Had no whiffs, which is something that is a major red flag. His slather only had 2 after that pitch has been, I would say, hot for the last month or so. Another red flag. And also something else that our producer John pointed out to us before the show is that Carrasco has ridiculous home road splits this year. And if you think back to his bad starts this year, you think of this one, you think of Anaheim, and you think of St. Louis.
Yeah.
And those 3 bad starts, because the split is not really going to give you a great sample for ERA, has ballooned his road ERA to over 6, while his home sits around 3.
Yeah, and of course, playing in Citi Field, one of the more pitcher-friendly parks right now in all of baseball, you can definitely see that maybe he's a little more comfortable, maybe gets a little more better outcomes, but
Carlos Carrasco's only allowed 2 home runs all season at Citi Field. Yordan Álvarez hit 2 today in 2 at-bats.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough outing. It was a tough outing. He's not going to be able to pitch as well as he has every single one. It was just a little disappointing that in a game where the Mets didn't have, too much stacked up against them, we kind of got in this 4-0 hole immediately.
Yeah, it was a game that you kind of hope that Carrasco was able to give you a better opportunity to win than he did, because Luis Garcia is a good pitcher. He hasn't, like you mentioned before, hasn't been as good this year in his sophomore campaign compared to his rookie, but he really had us swinging through some stuff early. It was all 4-seam fastballs and cutters, which is kind of the book on Garcia, which is kind of a reason he has struggled a little bit. He hasn't been able to develop a breaking ball or an off-speed pitch as well as I think the Astros would like, but those 2 pitches were great. He was placing them very well. That cutter especially, just outside to righties, it's a hard pitch to track because it comes in pretty hard. It still has a good movement. Each of those pitches had 7 whiffs, and he had 20 on the day before he left the game.
And he's also a little herky-jerky. Even though his release is relatively normal, he rocks the baby, and Keith and Gary were very fixated on this in the first inning. Keith was talking about when he would start his load. And when he said it, I was like, yeah, but what if he takes another step? That's what he does. He keeps you off balance. That's one of the reasons why he's great as well. Just didn't hit him. Didn't hit him at all.
Until the 6th inning. Mets actually got something going here and gave us fans some reason for hope. One of those classic Mets rallies that we thought we've seen so many times this year. Nimmo got a leadoff walk, that's quintessential Brandon Nimmo. Marte laced a double, brought Nimmo home, and Lindor hit a single. So suddenly we have 2 on, no out, 1 in. Pete Alonso's due up as, I believe at that point, the tying run.
Yeah, no, it was, at this point in the game, I don't know about you guys, other Met fans out there, I thought the Mets were coming back. I thought there was no doubt. There was, no outs at this point, right? And they had all their guys on. The top of the order had been hitting. It really seemed like they started to figure something out. Pete got the sac fly, which, of course, we would have liked more, but that's still a productive out. That's still good baseball. And then Guillorme got the double, which was like, this lineup's all of a sudden cooking. It's clicking. And here we go. The Mets, it's a 5-3 game with guys on base.
And even after that, against a very tough reliever, Ryan Stanek, who I think has some of the best stuff of any reliever in all of baseball, 100 miles an hour with a good slider. Mark Hanna got down 2 strikes and worked a very, very, very nice walk. And this is something that the Mets' bottom of the order hitters have done very well this year. I asked our producer, John, new stats guy, to go through and get some of the kind of the bottom meat of the order, leaving out 8 and 9, because we know the 8 and 9 spots in any order, unless you're the Dodgers, is going to be an uphill battle. But 5, 6, 7 hitters on the Mets this year have a .328 on-base percentage, which is 3rd best in all of baseball. And if you add in the 8-hitter, 5, 6, 7, 8, is a 331 on-base percentage, which is the best in all of baseball. So that's a lot of Mark Hanna. It's a lot of Luis Guillorme. It's even a lot of J.D. Davis sometimes when he's going well, and that's a lot of Jeff McNeil getting on base consistently, and even some Tomas Nido at times.
Yeah, and
a lot of those guys finding ways on base to sustain these rallies, and it has been a big reason for a lot of these big Mets comeback wins this season so far.
And it felt like this game had that written all over it. Escobar, though, came up, and Escobar, who hit a home run in Game 1, hoping again, maybe starting to heat up, saw him play well in the last game of the series against the Marlins, just had a really bad at-bat. I just think there's no way around it. He got down 0-1 to Stanek. He threw a pitch inside, just kind of got beat and popped up to the infield. And that was a time when bases are loaded. You have to put the ball in play better than that. Just because even a deep fly ball or a medium to shallow fly ball scores a run there, it's really crushing when you're pushing a team like this and pushing, and you just kind of get beat.
And you saw Escobar show some frustration for what seemed like one of the first times I've seen him do that this year.
Yeah.
And it's pretty clear that his poor play of late is wearing on him. I also do want to tell Mets fans, it's kind of hilarious, but coming into the day, he's only been about 5% worse than league average with the bat in terms of WRC+, which it feels like he's worse than that, but it's just kind of the league's run environment is so bad that Escobar is still kind of sitting within the kind of expected range that you probably thought he was going to be, between like 5% worse than league average and 5% better. It's kind of the spot he sat for most of his career. Last year he was better than that, but I digress because Dom Smith came up after that. Dom, who already had a double in this game, looking for the Dom Smith redemption tour, also had a not so great at-bat against Ryan Stanek, who is really good stuff.
The pitch he struck out on was disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I can't blame Dom. I think in the moment I was a little bit harsher on him than afterwards, spending a little time looking over what happened and being like, oh, yeah, Ryan Stanek was disgusting. He was just better than Dom. That's going to happen, but it was, I think, just the culmination of bases loaded, no outs, and we really only came out of it with 3 runs was a little bit tough to swallow, especially for a game that you don't go down 4-0, 5-0 early and think you can win one. And at that moment, it wasn't just that I thought the Mets could come back. I thought they were going to win the game.
Yeah, especially also because I mentioned this in the preview last episode. This Astros bullpen is incredible. Statistically, probably the best or second best bullpen in all of baseball. And you saw that on display with Stanek getting out of that jam with flying colors. Again, 100-mile-an-hour fastball, wipeout slider. Hector Nerys, who is not the Philadelphia Phillies Hector Nerys anymore. This guy is reborn, reinvented, renewed, and he put the Mets down with ease, which is something we've almost never seen Hector Nerys do.
No, yeah, I saw a lot of tweets about people being like, oh, Hector Nerys is in, like, this is good. I would have agreed with you if he was still in Philadelphia, but because he's with the Astros, a pitching factory, you knew you got to know he's a different pitcher. Speaking
of pitching factories, could you guys imagine a Rafael Montero dotting up the bottom of the zone, pounding the strike zone, getting guys to roll over on everything?
That one hurt. Real bad. That one stung a little bit just because he was supposed to be our top prospect. He was the guy who was hyped up over Syndergaard and other names.
I was at Rafael Montero's Major League debut the day before Jacob deGrom's Major League debut, where the Mets were shut out by Masahiro Tanaka on a Friday night.
Oh man, I don't want to think about that.
That one's ingrained in my mind.
I don't really want to talk about Rafael Montero anymore. I'd like to forget that he was dominant against us.
Guy's really good. Then Ryan Presley comes in the 9th inning and is throwing 97 with a ridiculously moving curveball that goes down, it goes out. Mets had no chance against these relievers. So you had that opportunity in the 6th inning when it seemed like Dusty Baker might have left Luis Garcia in for a little bit too long. Third time through the order, basically only throwing fastballs. You had your shot. You couldn't cash in, and you lose the game.
Yep, you lose the game. Big shout out to our bullpen, though. Again, We talked about Adonis Medina stepping up in Game 1. How about Yohan Lopez, Tommy Hunter, Joe Ellie? The guys that maybe you don't expect to have the biggest of impacts. And granted, we weren't winning, so it wasn't high-pressure situations. But what did we get? Almost 4 or 5 innings out of these guys of really good baseball?
4 1/3 innings between those 3 guys with no earned runs.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic.
Against this Astros lineup.
Yohan Lopez looked really good.
Folk hero, man. I love that guy.
And, of course, Tommy Hunter. The legend of Tommy Hunter, the guy still yet to give up a run for the New York Mets.
It's kind of funny, honestly. It seems like it was basically the same time of year, too, when he became his legend last year. And it was a brief. Our brightest stars burn out the quickest, but I'm happy to see Tommy Hunter back. And I can't wait to get some more data on his pitch movement to see if there's actually something that can stick around.
Yeah, I mean, he was disgusting. He's retired 10 of the 11 batters he's faced this year. Tommy Hunter, we've talked about A, B, C team bullpen. This C team bullpen, this series really stepped up, and it's got to make you feel better. I know it's really hard, Mets fans, to feel good about anything after losing to the Astros like we did, but at least it's got to feel good knowing that our guys who aren't supposed to be doing the heavy lifting actually can make an impact on this team.
Yeah, and that kind of goes to show something else we mentioned last episode, that while this Mets bullpen has seemed bad at times, I think every bullpen in baseball seems bad at times, because every single time your bullpen blows a game or gives up a collection of runs, it feels like, I don't know, the world is falling down around you and there's nothing else that can happen.
It's like knowing your offensive lineman in football.
Yeah.
Knowing the guy's name is probably one of the worst things unless he's like elite all-pro kind of thing. But if you know who your left guard is, that's probably not a good thing.
Same with like the third corner.
Yeah, if you know the guy's name, it's not good. But it's like kind of with baseball, when you blow a save, like you said, it's just a lot easier to remember the bad than it is the good.
Definitely. But gotta shout these guys out, because in this series, the Mets got less than 8 innings from their 2 starters combined, which is a big change from what the Mets have gotten this year. So glad that we were able to dip into the depths of our bullpen. Also with Seth Lugo out on the paternity list, and game 1 of this series, Drew Smith was unavailable. Edwin was probably unavailable. So we didn't really have a lot to work with bullpen-wise, and big shout-out to these guys for getting it done and bridging us to the next series.
Yeah, Mets, one of the few series losses that we have this year, losing 2 to the Houston Astros, one of the few times that we've lost back-to-back games all season long.
I think it's the 5th time.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, I think, want to jump to conclusions, get really aggressive, talk about trades, talk about, what do we need to do? What do we need to change? The Mets haven't lost 3 straight all year. So the fact that they lost 2 to the Astros, who are one of the best teams in all of baseball.
So the Mets lost both these games in Houston. The first time they've been swept all year. For everybody not watching on YouTube, I used air quotes because I don't really count a 2-game series as a sweep. But if Mets fans want to think back a little bit before we kind of move away from the Astros, if it feels like we have not been able to win a game in Houston in a long time, you would be correct. The Mets have actually lost 8 consecutive games in Houston, dating all the way back to 2011.
Yeah, I actually have the box score up here. We're going to have some fun. We like to drop some random facts and numbers every once in a while
and
for
names.
You guys. And names, yes. May 15th, 2011, the Mets beat the Astros 7-4. Chris Capuano was on the mound for the Mets that game. That's actually the second time that season he had beaten the Astros, which is kind of a weird coincidence that a team that you don't play too often. The Astros were also in the National League still at this time, which is also crazy to talk about. If you want to say Mets lineup, Jose Reyes, Josh Tolley was hitting 2, David Wright 3, Beltran 4, Jason Bay 5, Daniel Murphy 6, Justin Turner playing second base, hitting 7th, Jason Pridey playing center field, hitting 8th, and then Chris Capuano on the mound. The highlights of this game, Justin Turner hit a home run and a double and drove in 5 runs, and the Mets win this one.
Unbelievable. Jason Isringhausen got a hold for the Mets in this game. Taylor Buckles pitched for the Mets.
K-Rod got the save. I mean, there are some deep cuts here for you Mets fans. That's how long it's been since we've won a game in Houston. It has been quite some time.
We were freshmen in high school.
Yeah, oh my God. I don't want to think about me as a freshman right now. 26. It's 11 years ago.
Yes.
Oh God, awful.
Terrible. Shocking. But that's it. It's tough to win these games here. Luckily, we will get the Astros at home next week, though, so everyone get excited for that. After this road series in Miami, we're coming back for what should be another fun 2-game set against the Astros at home.
Let's look to sweep them there.
Yeah, right? And it's also weird that that's another 2-game series Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
Exactly like this one. This schedule is bizarre.
No, it's super strange. Now, the Astros series wasn't fun, but we do have some good news coming here. Max Scherzer, Mad Max, of course, we've been itching for this guy to come back, and it looks like he's a step closer to being back on this New York Mets team. He made a rehab start out in Binghamton, and James, I know you got the stats on him. How do you fare?
He fared pretty well. I mean, we always like to say whenever a guy does extraordinarily well in one of these rehab starts, he's back, and when they're not, when they do something even kind of not that good, they're working on stuff. Scherzer faced 14 batters, got 6 strikeouts, which you hope Max Scherzer would do even at 85% against AA players. Gave up 3 hits and a home run, though, on his last batter of the game before he was removed, which I believe was in the 4th inning.
Yeah.
Got to about 55, 60 pitches in this one, so seems like that means he's one step away from throwing 75 to 80. We still don't know officially whether that is going to come again with a minor league affiliate or with the Mets this coming Sunday. I would say right now we're so close to this point where I wouldn't rush it. I would do everything possible to make sure that everything is perfect before he steps on the mound at Citi Field, hopefully next weekend against the Texas Rangers. But the fact that we are as close as we are and we're still not yet in July makes me so warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah, no, we should be using a little bit of kitty gloves here with Max Scherzer. We don't want to rush him back because we know baseball season is long. We need him for the end of the season. We need him for the long summer that's coming up here. We don't need to rush him back to face the Marlins in a start at home.
No, on the road.
Now, on the road.
In Miami.
In Miami. But to be fair, I think the most memorable thing about this entire game, though, is what Max Scherzer said after the game. He was talking to some reporters, and he said, I want to get out of there so bad. I want to be in the big leagues, not be a Rumble Pony. And this kind of caused a little bit of a stir. Some big diehard Rumble Ponies fans out there. And to be fair, I get it. That's one of the better names, I think, in minor league baseball.
Definitely one of the better names in minor league baseball. But there are also so many fantastic names across minor league baseball. Some old, some new, north, south, east, west. Even though there are a lot less minor league teams than there were a few years ago, some amazing names have still stuck around. And that's something I think would be fun for the two of us to maybe, draft right now.
Yeah, spark a little fun conversation. You guys at home watching or listening, whatever you can do, let us know on Twitter or any social media, even in the YouTube comment sections. Who do you think had the best draft? Because that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to make, 5 picks, I think?
5, 3. We'll see how we feel up to the third.
Okay. And do a snake draft?
Yeah, of course.
All right, you want to go first or you want me to go first?
You go first.
All right, I'm going to go first. And I'm going to go ahead and go with the Rocket City Trash Pandas. Their logo's phenomenal. The name's phenomenal. Minor League Baseball is fun. And the name Trash Pandas, that's a fun name. Now, I don't know where Rocket City is. I have no clue.
Rocket City?
I think it might be Alabama. My knowledge of locations.
Oh, you know where I think that is?
Where?
I do think that is Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, because
Drew, he does the Rocket City Moonmen.
Shout out to our friend, Not the Expert, big YouTuber, good friend of ours. But yeah, Rocket City Trash
That's
Pandas,
so
that's
funny.
going to be my number 1 overall pick.
That was a good pick. I thought you were going there. That's kind of why I gave you the pick. I have 2 now that I think are going to be pretty fun. First one, which I think is a really fun name, the Everett Aqua Sox.
That's a good one.
Aqua Sox doesn't even make any sense. You can't put a sock in water.
I remember the Everett Aqua Sox. I don't know if their jerseys are still like this, but back in the day had elite camo jerseys with blues and greens and whites, all these crazy colors, and the jerseys were sick.
Those are sick. But actually, I don't even know that's sick. Take that out. Everett Aqua Sox, just a bizarre name, doesn't make any sense. My next pick is a fun one. R.I.P. to the Sugarland Skeeters, but born now out of that is the Sugarland Space Cowboys. That is my second pick.
You stole my pick. I'm gonna have to scramble for another one here. Their jerseys and everything as well. The branding is phenomenal.
Space Cowboys.
That's also the Astros, which is kind of topical a
It
little
is,
bit.
in a way.
My second pick is gonna be the Richmond Flying Squirrels. So we got Jeff McNeil. Call him the Flying Squirrel. We got to give some love to the Richmond Flying Squirrels with another great nickname, another great logo. Shout out to Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah, Richmond, fun town. Good city.
I've honestly never spent any time in Richmond.
Been there a few times. Almost went to that college. It's a cool place to hang.
All right, and then for my final pick here, and pick number 3, I'm going to be a little bit of a homer. I'm going to do it.
I'm going to get my
Got to
pick.
show some love here to the Mets. I think the Brooklyn Cyclones.
It's a good one.
I really like the Brooklyn Cyclones. The logo's phenomenal. It's a classic logo. The Cyclones is cool because, of course, the roller coaster out in Coney Island. And it's just, I think overall, just one of the better minor league organizations from a branding perspective in the entire league. So for me, Brooklyn Cyclones. Call me a homer. I'm a Mets fan. Sorry.
I mean, how many baseball stadiums are there on a beach in the whole world?
Can't be many.
No.
Can't be many. The Cyclones are elite.
Fun time. Shout out to the 7 Line having their event, I think, at Brooklyn Cyclones game this weekend.
Yeah, should be coming up.
Yeah. So if we're only going to stick with 3, I have my third pick right now ready to go. A team that is near and dear to my heart. A really funny name. The Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp.
That's a good one.
Miami Marlins affiliate. That is a hell of a name right there.
There are just so many good names in minor league baseball. I mean, we didn't even mention the Biscuits. That's a classic one.
The Batavia Muck Dogs.
Muck Dogs, yeah. I think I saw the Wood Ducks, and I think there's also the Rubber Ducks.
We have the Frisco Rough Riders, the Midland Rockhounds, the Hillsboro Hops.
The Hillsboro Hops is another good one.
I'm a sucker for alliteration.
The names in minor league baseball are fun. I want you guys, though, to give your opinion. Who do you think had a better draft? Me or James? Let us know in the YouTube comments. If you're on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you're seeing this, comment who won this draft. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
I'm scrolling right now. The Clinton Lumber Kings.
Is that a real one?
These might be some old ones now on this Google page, but the Salem Volcanoes, that's funny.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. Minor league baseball, always a good time. And hopefully Max Scherzer is right. Hopefully he is not a Rumble Pony anymore. We want him back in Citi Field, healthy as a New York Met.
Healthy, comfortable, and ready.
Yes. Which now leads us to the mailbag. Because, of course, 2-game series, a little bit of a shorter episode, but we want to make sure that you guys get some interaction with us. That's one of the things we love to do on this podcast, is get involved with the Mets fans. So we asked you guys on Twitter, @Mets'd, to give us your questions for the mailbag. And we got a bunch of good questions. We're going to dive into as many as we possibly can and give you guys shout-outs as well. So make sure you're following us so that the next mailbag episode, you can get involved as well.
First question coming from a day one listener, very loyal follower, Nick Kowal @thekoala_4. Frequently, we take his questions on the mailbag because he's such a big fan. We interact with him a lot. it gives you guys something to work up to here. Do you think Yorme should be the everyday starter at third base over Escobar until he gets right at the plate? And this is, I think, kind of a multifaceted question because you're dealing with a veteran who has a long track record of being very good in the major leagues. You're dealing with a guy who probably, for the first time in his career, is struggling to the level he is. And you can just see that Eduardo Escobar, he's really internalizing this. He's very upset by his struggles. He's very frustrated with his own play. He had a great quote after the game saying that I understand the frustrations of the fans. I'm a professional baseball player, so I'm trying to do the best I possibly can. One day, I'm going to give them the reason to cheer for me. Which, you hear a guy say that, and that is like, all right, that makes you motivated and feel good. But you also look at the other side of the coin, and he's simply not producing right now. And if you can only start two of Escobar, McNeil, or Guillorme on a given day, it's pretty clear the two guys that are hitting the ball better.
Yeah, and I think right now they should be platooning Guillorme and Escobar because Escobar is hitting left-handed pitching really well this year. His numbers against lefties are significantly better than against righties. So if we're talking batting average, 292 versus lefties, 206 versus righties. Batting average not that important, but hey, it's a fun stat. Some people still care. On base percentage, better against left-handed pitching, and the power has been there against the lefties. His OPS is hovering around the 900 range against lefties, where against righties, he's kind of struggling to get above that 600 range. So
he's barely at 500.
Yeah, he's I can't do math.
No.
I'm a YouTuber. Math is not in my forte by any means. That's why I talk to a camera all day. But I think against lefties, Escobar has been very effective this year, and that at least maybe for the next week or so should maybe be his role, at least if I was managing the team. I know I'm not, so it doesn't really matter. But the way that Guillorme's been hitting righties, on the other hand, 343 average, 417 on base, 422 slugging, those numbers are phenomenal. I mean, I know it's a smaller sample because he's only really started playing a lot recently in the last month plus, but Guillorme, we've seen him play enough this year. We know this guy's a ball player, and we've been praising him since we've started this podcast.
And he's been ticking up. He's been hitting the ball harder and harder as the year's gone on. We've seen Luis Guillorme get some exit velocities in the hundreds over the last few weeks, which is something that you very, very rarely saw in his first few years in the league. And we mention this all the time. Luis Guillorme just makes play after play on the infield that just makes your jaw drop. Him and Lindor turned a sweet double play in game one of this game where Guillorme made a nice pick behind the bag and threw the ball. Even though he was on the bag, his momentum was moving in the opposite direction. Had the wherewithal to flip the ball kind of high, let Lindor grab it, get himself to the base, and come and throw the ball really well with his momentum moving towards first. The guy's just a special infielder. It's like something you've never seen before.
Yeah, I think the perfect way to utilize them, honestly, is just split that playing time. Put the guys in the scenarios that they will succeed in the most, I think. And Escobar has succeeded against left-handed pitching. Guillorme has been great against righties. It feels like that might be maybe an oversimplified way to fix this, but right now I think you got to at least try it.
It is, but it's also a situation where you're in a veteran clubhouse with a veteran manager, and there's a veteran player who was paid to perform a role, and it might be kind of... that'll be a tough conversation for Buck Showalter. I mean, that is one of the benefits of having a guy like Buck Showalter as the manager, where if you do have to change things up, he probably knows the way to manicure the situation and do it in a way that keeps everyone in the clubhouse, including Escobar, still thinking the right way, moving towards the one singular goal this team has. It's going to be interesting to see how this situation unfolds over the next few weeks.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how it plays out, especially because Miami does have some left-handed pitching in their rotation.
Absolutely.
Okay, another question coming in from Eric Briggs, who's is not Eric Briggs, it's John Smith, whatever it is. On a level of 1 to 10, how much of a prospect hugger are you guys? How much of the system would you be able to stomach shipping out in August if it meant a better positioned October in 2022? So my take up until, honestly, probably the last few years is that I will always trade prospects for bona fide stars. The thing is, they need to be bona fide stars. Like, unfortunately, we're seeing Pete Crow Armstrong kind of flourish in Chicago, and we no longer have Javi Baez, so that one might, bite us in the butt.
Who's playing horribly in Detroit.
Who's playing horribly. But at the same time, we're not trading Francisco Alvarez. There's no chance. You can't do it. We're not trading Brett Beatty. We're not trading Ronnie Mauricio probably even right now, unless you get a big-name guy, pitcher maybe. It's tough. I'm not a prospect hugger by any means. I will make the right trade if it does make this team better, because the ultimate goal of 2022 is to win the World Series. And you should, if there's a move that makes you win the World Series, you got to make it. But I think you do have to be a little bit careful because we have a bunch of guys that look like they'll be significant MLB players.
One thing I'll push back from what you said is the fact that if we're doing anything for 2022 to make us win the World Series, you would do it. Something I'm not really a prospect hugger. My whole philosophy is kind of like if someone isn't even in AA yet, I'll just trade him and move on to the next one, figure something else out, because there's such a low hit rate for guys who are even just playing well in high A or low A, even double A, even if a guy's dominating down there. There's no telling what's going to happen when he gets even up a level or two to the major leagues. But something that I think would be important for the Mets if they do end up trading, I'm never trading Francisco Alvarez, but I would certainly listen to offers around Brett Baty, Ronnie Mauricio, or any other prospect in the system, including Alex Ramirez, because if there's an opportunity, and I think there always are, to get players who are going to be with the team for more than just half a season.
Yes.
Rentals are something I'm terrified of because that's such a small window, and the player who's being traded knows that. Like, everyone knows the level of prospects they're traded for and the situation they're going into. We heard David Cohn talk about this, actually, too.
We did, yeah.
You're very aware of that situation, and it's easy, especially as a bat, to press. And when you're pressing, you're going to be swinging more pitches out of the strike zone. Citi Field's not the easiest place to hit. The Mets are not the easiest fans in the world to play for. Greatest fans on earth, don't get me wrong, but we're an ornery bunch. If you trade big prospects for a player, you only have him for 3 months, and that first month is bad, things could really actively spiral. We kind of saw that last season.
We're passionate fans.
Passionate fans. Best fans on earth.
I don't want to say we demand excellence, but we expect that you're going to play as good as you were before you were on the team.
So with that, trading for a rental does scare me if you're giving up a guy who's a clear top 50, top 60 prospect like Brett Baty or Ronnie Mauricio, who both look like they're going to be Major League Baseball players. Their potential, their ceiling is still yet to be seen. Same with Mark Vientos. Did I say Vientos before Mauricio?
I think it's Mauricio.
Okay, so those three guys are the tradable assets, I'd say, right now in the Mets system. And they all have some things they do well. They'll have some things they don't do well. None of those guys are can't miss by any means. There is such a low hit rate of prospects between 15 and 100. You'd be shocked if you looked back at the old lists. So I would not be afraid to trade any of these guys because this team with Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer can compete for a World Series. Next year, with those guys still on the team, they can again compete for a World Series. If you can get a guy who's going to be around for the next couple of years, say a Frankie Montas, a Luis Castillo.
Well, wait. Let me get to the next questions then, because I think we're starting to get into it now. You're getting excited. I get it. We want to talk a little bit trades. It's starting to get possibly into that trade talk time, but that was probably the most asked question in the replies.
Always.
Was about trades.
For the last 3 mailbags, going back to May, you guys really can't wait to hear about trades. I've even gotten some DMs. Guys, once July hits, we're going to talk trade.
But I'll throw some names out there. Sean, Matt, we had Wick, ban the wave, which I also agree, ban the wave. Thank you guys for asking this question. I'll give you some easy names. James will probably give you a little bit deeper cuts here, but guys like Frankie Montas, guys like Luis Castillo, those are obviously the big pitcher names that everyone's always looking for. They're going to demand a lot. They're going to demand some top prospects. The Mets can make that decision whether or not they want to do that. They might not even be interested at all. We have no clue, but those are definitely some of the bigger names on the pitching side that everyone's going to be involved in.
And if you look at the hitting side for guys who aren't even just rentals, it's kind of barren a little bit. You got AJ Pollock, who the White Sox are a complete dumpster fire, so there's a chance they start selling. He'd add an element to this outfield depth, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Chris
he's a good ball player. Yeah, Randall Grichuk, who I don't really care for that much at all.
But I don't even know if outfield is. We probably are looking more at third base, just a bat that can maybe even fill in at the DH spot to help us out a little bit.
But those are the kind of the players that pop up seemingly out of nowhere. Like you took Jonathan Scope. Is that someone you're thinking of? There's not that many sexy CJ Cron who.
And to be fair, we didn't necessarily know if we were going to get Javi Baez until a few days before the deadline happened.
Yeah.
So these trades take a little bit more time to develop, especially with bigger name players because of the capital that's going to be coming back.
Also this year, the fact that there are more teams in the playoffs. That's happening this year, correct?
Yeah, that's happening this year.
There's going to be more teams that think they're still in it. I talked about AJ Pollock. I don't think the White Sox and Jerry Reinsdorf are going to admit that they're out of it until they are out of it, until they're scraping and clawing their way through no-shift baseball and burning all their starting pitchers in September when they're 9 games out. It's hard. David Peralta, are these names really getting you jazzed?
Nelson Cruz, maybe if the Nationals are willing to get rid of him, which I would imagine they are because they're terrible. The names right now that we can give you that you don't already know.
Josh Bell, Robbie Grossman.
They're not going to excite you, but as we get closer and closer, we will definitely probably have almost a dedicated episode maybe just talking about possible trade prospects.
At least 20, 30 minutes of one.
Because when it does get to trade deadline season, it's going to be hot. The hot stove heats up.
The guy I mentioned a few weeks ago, who is still one of my favorite trade candidates for this Mets team, is Mitch Haniger. On a 1-year deal. He just plays corner outfield. They're probably not going to have to give up that much to get him. Definitely none of the prospects I just mentioned. You could probably get him for a couple guys in your rookie ball low-A team. He's someone who I think would be a nice thumper. Nice right-handed bat for this Mets roster.
Definitely. And then let's wrap up the mailbag here with a little bit of a fun question. This one comes from Vega at CVega123 on Twitter. Best memory of being at the ballpark, either Shea or City. James, I'm going to let you take this one first.
Mine actually definitely comes from Shea. It was a Friday evening, I believe during the 2006 season. Mets-Yankees Subway Series. Mets sustained a nice little comeback in the ninth inning against the Yankees at this game with my dad. And David Wright, a young David Wright, a burgeoning star, comes to the plate against Mariano Rivera, laces a double over the center fielder's head. Walk-off win. Mets beat the Yankees.
I think the one that immediately comes to my mind, and maybe because it's more recent, has to be the 2015 World Series, the game that we did win at home.
Oh, we don't all get to go to the World Series games.
Yeah, well, I did, so I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to brag here. Humble brag. Was at the World Series, no big deal. The game where they won, David Wright hitting the home run, Noah Syndergaard whizzing one by Alcides Escobar's head. I know the series didn't end the way that we wanted it to, but that game was awesome. And seeing David Wright hit a home run in the World Series at Citi Field, that just, it felt right. It felt right in a career that ended up not being as great or not being as fortunate as we hoped it would be. That felt like a moment of like, this is exactly what we should have been seeing all these years. And it was a great moment. Got to watch it with my dad, so that was cool.
I think I've said this on the show before, but I'll just say for possibly new listeners out there. That was game 2 of the, was game 2 or game 3? That was
game 3, yeah.
Mets were returning home. Noah Syndergaard pitching, that crazy, crazy moment. On a Friday night, Alcides Escobar, like you mentioned before the game, I was watching the game with friends in college. And then that next morning was actually my mom's birthday. And I had conjoined with my dad to get myself a surprise flight home, to get home, surprise my mom, good son, Catholic boy. The Mets won that game, and that was just, I had never seen the Mets win a World Series game my entire life. It was a Friday night, Halloween weekend in college. I had way too much fun that night. Stayed out all hours of the night. The bartender at shout out Midway in Columbus happened to be a Mets fan. He was giving us anything we asked for, a crew of Mets fans showing up to the bar. I turn over the next morning in my bed, 10:30. Missed my flight by a whole hour. I had to go to the airport, Columbus International Airport. I don't even think it's an international airport. I think it's just a Columbus airport. It's basically the equivalent of a New York City train station. There's no people there ever. I had to stand there on standby, but I stood there for 2 hours, ended up getting a flight home, making the mom's birthday. So it all worked out in the end.
That's very on brand for you to cut it close with an airline.
I didn't cut this one close.
Well, I missed it.
I missed this flight clear through by an entire hour. First flight I ever missed.
I've never missed a flight. Fun fact.
I've missed 2.
Yeah, no, I'm the guy who gets there 3 hours before the flight, and I'm like, I'll just relax in the airport. I don't want any stress when I'm traveling.
Yeah, well, different strokes for different folks.
So that was our mailbag. Not bad for the first one. We do this probably weekly.
That's not our first one.
Well, first one now with the Mets, of course. Make sure you're following us at Mets'd so you guys can get involved in these. Like I said, we're going to do them about once a week. We want to hear your stuff. Give us your questions. We want to interact with you guys, so make sure you do. Now let's go ahead and preview that Marlins series, James. You're the pitching matchup guy. Hit me.
Talked about Sandy Alcantara before. That's going to really stink Friday night. 6:40 start time. Everyone be aware. Not 7:10. 6:40 start time. Half hour early.
Love
so
that.
Make sure you set your clocks coming home from work, whatever, school. I don't know. But we have Taijuan Walker on the bump. Taijuan Walker, who is the reborn, the reinvented, the renewed Taijuan Walker. This Taijuan Walker split change slider, four-seam fastball Taijuan Walker. No reason he can't shut this team down again.
Of course not. He's been great. And
also, no reason the Mets will be able to hit Sandy Alcantara this time around. So we'll see what happens in that game. Hopefully a pitcher's duel. Saturday, we're facing all the pitchers we just faced. Chris Bassett for us. Trevor Rogers again for them. Sure.
should hit him.
Yeah, hopefully. And the Marlins do not have a pitcher on the docket right now for Sunday. I believe, John, you can maybe be able to back me up on this. I think Daniel Castano pitched Monday for them.
I think you're right.
I think that lines up for him. But the Marlins have so many guys coming on and off the IL at any given time. Maybe it's Eliezer Hernandez. I mean, I don't know how long these guys are out. But I know Hernandez and Edward Cabrera are both on the IL right now and not out for like that long.
Yeah.
So maybe one of them, but it looks like could be Castano in a start spot. Maybe they're saving that for Max Meyer's Major League debut.
When I was at the game, the last Marlins game, I saw Daniel Castano hanging out in the tunnel. It seemed like he might have been answering a call for your car's extended warranty. I couldn't believe that he was taking it on speakerphone in public.
What the hell? What kind of phone call do you have to get in public? Like a lawyer or a real estate agent?
I don't know, but he had it on speakerphone
Accountant?
for everyone to hear, and I swear, I thought I heard, I would like to ask you about your car's extended warranty. I was like, you can't be taking this guy.
Maybe he's a day trader. That was a day game.
was a day game. Maybe he was making moves. I don't know. What about the last game of the series?
Well, for the Mets, there's a possibility that's going to be Max Scherzer, but we're not really sure. And if not, that's going to be Trevor Williams because he just started our game on Tuesday.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, it's the Marlins. They are going to be a little bit better because Jesus Sanchez is now back in the lineup. He's recovered. Aguilar, I'm not sure if he's back yet, but he is. Our producer, John, actually just filled us in. He is back. So the lineup will be stronger. By no means is it scary, but it is a better lineup than we saw. And, of course, they always have the Met killer, John Birdie, who we have to keep an eye out for.
And we're going down to Miami to that ridiculously empty ballpark that just seems to always suck the life out of the Mets like a vampire every single time we head there.
I've never been there. I would like to go one day just because I'm trying to see every single ballpark in baseball.
I would save that one for the end.
Yeah, save it for the end. But Miami, just every time we go there, it feels weird. We had the weird games last year when we basically had the AA and AAA lineup playing and we somehow scratched out some wins. I'm hoping the Mets just a nice, easy series. I'd love to recap the next episode with some smiles and some happiness because I don't like when we lose series and we have to talk about it.
We're going to feel it right away because this Sandy Alcantara game on Friday seems like it could be an inflection point for this Mets team. Similar to that third Dodger game of that series and the way that Angel series began after the way the Padres series ended, where Mets have not lost 3 in a row all year, as John so graciously pointed out earlier in this show. So I'm going to try the reverse jinx now. They can't beat Sandy Alcantara. There's no way.
Can't hit him.
You can't hit the guy. He's Cy Young winner. He's best pitcher in baseball right now.
Best pitcher in baseball.
Certainly the best pitcher in the National League.
I don't know how you touch this guy. He's
There's
too
no
good.
way. And the Taiwan Walker, the Magic's going to run out. These aren't tangible changes like we've talked about. No way.
Yeah, we're trying to do a little bit of the reverse jinx there. But
realistically, I'm not now to be serious. This is an inflection point for this Mets team because if they can dig deep and find a way to stave off this losing streak against literally one of the best pitchers in baseball, that will show a ton of grit. It's grit that we've seen all year. Possibly we'll have Jeff McNeil back too, which would be fantastic. Maybe Seth Lugo rejoins the team also for this, give that bullpen some more strength. I don't know. I'm not going to call it a big series because it's the Marlins in June.
Yeah.
But I would like to see some good fight. At worst, let's win this one.
Yeah, let's win the series. I think that should be the goal every single time, and the Mets have been doing that pretty much the entire year. So by no means should this Astro series be doomsday for anybody. The sky is not falling. Houston, we have a problem. Not really. I think this entire episode, we tried to at least give you guys that opinion that it's going to be okay.
Also want to shout out, for anyone who does not know, Sunday is the Mets' first, and I think only game on Peacock all year. So that's a noon start on Sunday. So be aware it's an early one. And 4:10 on Saturday. So no 7 o'clock games this series.
And honestly, I think that's a perfect place for us to wrap up this episode of the Mets'd podcast, the official podcast of the New York Mets. Again, never going to get tired of saying that. So sorry, you guys have to listen to that forever, as long as we are continuing to do this. Make sure you're following us on all our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to the Mets YouTube channel so you can see the video version of this, which I promise is going to look good. The graphics department, beautiful job by them. Can't wait to see what that looks like on the YouTube channel. If you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, wherever you get your podcasts, drop us a rating, drop us a review, share it with your friends, share it with Mets fans, share it with non-Mets fans. We don't care. We just want people listening. It really does help grow the show. As well as make sure you follow me on Twitter at GiraffeNeckMark and James at
James Shiano.
Keeping it easy for you guys. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. And we'll see you after the Marlins series. Peace out.
Peace out, guys. See you next time.